Okay, how we doing? Today's video, I'm gonna title it "Finding TDC" because so many times we've been in those scenarios where we're dealing with could be a no start, could be a performance issue, could be a cam crank correlation issue, and in our diagnostic style, we want to use as many resources as we can to prove where TDC is. And in this video, we're going to do a combination of a few things. We're going to have scope, we're going to have pressure transducer, and we're going to have scan tool. That's a recording right there. That's a D cell where it says 8 degrees before top dead center. See how flat the pit is? That I kind of like that because that's really accurate. That's a moment when the car's in fuel cut and it's commanding the timing 8 degrees before top dead center. It sort of locks it there. So nonetheless, we're going to look at that later. And we have a setup here. We're going to be only looking at no more than 3 signals during this whole presentation. We have a WPS in cylinder 1. We're suppressing the spark, which you always do. Always suppress your spark because you don't want any flyback voltage hitting your transducer. That's something really important anyway. So we're suppressing the spark with a spark tester. That's looks like one of those online spark testers, which you know that alligator clips are so cheesy, and just you can actually make them better. Use some banana leads and alligator clips nonetheless. Just something to keep those things secure, because when you buy those alligator clips, they're a little cheesy. Our other 2 signals are the number 1 trigger, ignition trigger, and our crank sensor. Okay, here's the scope. That's a solid. This is a cranking signal at while we're idling. And we can look at the transducer. I'll get it in and we'll kind of talk about it. Then I'll do one live, and then we'll talk about how we look at everything. We look for the truth teller. Is it the crank sensor? Is it the pressure? Is it the high point of the tower? Is it a scan PID? We kind of want to use those O's all kind of together to see who's telling the truth of where TDC is. So nonetheless, I'm gonna run the car and idle it. I'm gonna start the scope actually. And here we go. And we're running. And we're idling. We're going across the screen. You can see it. All right. I will stop the scope and we'll analyze it. Okay. One thing I want to mention is that this car is known good, and that's really important when we take our data, whether it's scan data or scope stuff information. You want to try to get good signals on cars, especially the cars that have a proclivity where the crank electrolyte can walk. I think of the GM 3.6 with a whole bunch of timing chain, Audis, 4.2 Trailblazer, any car for that matter. But we want to get known good and try to key in on where true TDC is, and we're going to kind of look at the crank signal and all the variables surrounding that. So many times a crank signal can be skewed, it can be muddy, it could be a broken flywheel, it could be a shifted harmonic balancer, a shifted keyway, other scenarios where the wheels will walk on the crankshaft a few degrees. I know GM is known for that. We want to know where actually true TDC is, and when we look at our signal, and I'm going to kind of go in on it and look at some things. I've done a lot of analysis before this video, so I kind of have an idea of where things are. This is our idle, and I can tell you if I had a running scan tool when I took this, it usually hovers between 7 and 8 degrees. At idle, the PCM is sort of fine-tuning where it wants the spark to happen, and it's not as smooth as I showed you initially on that 8 degrees. There are other Keplers I will take. I will show you some recordings. I will show you a 40 degrees before top dead center. I will show you another 8 degrees running, and we're going to see if everything lines up as we analyze the particulars of the crank signal and the highest point of pressure, all these indicators of TDC. But sometimes one component may be more credible than another. We always have to look at that. Look at the way they corroborate with one another. So as we look at this, we can see our spark here. We can see the top of our tower here, And this is what I'm going to refer to in the rest of this video as the trough. This section right here is, on this car, is sort of, I'd call the trough. That's where TDC is going to happen, but it's never going to be, we're never going to get it dead nuts into one area. One thing I can tell you from here to here is 18 crankshaft degrees. Okay, and if I open up this, I'll get it back to its normal size, and we'll take a look at something. And remember, I told you we're about 7 to 8 degrees before top dead center. That's where we're firing. So let's take a look at this guy, and I'm going to put the 720 cursors in, and we're going to see something. And we go here. Okay, we're 720 in a firing cycle. We're idling. Take a good look at our pockets. Now, this is a good signal. That tells us a lot about this. If this were skewed, our expansion pocket here, our point of overlap here where the intake valve opens, the exhaust valve closes, that says a lot. If that's muddy or that's skewed, you got to consider there could be a correlation issue, something like a harmonic balancer shifts, that's key weighted down by the crank brakes, and the crank sprocket gets out of sync with the crankshaft, but it's still in sync with all the camshafts. So that's just something to bear in mind. So let's get down to here and bring the crank signal down and our tower and kind of analyze stuff. We're going to look at okay, let's get this guy a little bit dead nuts on the top of the apex, on the top of the tower. Remember I said 7 to 8 degrees. This is where our spark lit, right here at the end of the trigger point. And I'm going to go in 7 to 8 degrees and see if we're getting, okay, all right, the top of our tower is about 11. Okay, not bad, not too shabby. Okay, again, there's variables. As we can see, we're about 11 degrees before top dead center on the top of the tower compared to what the scan tool, and the scan tool was moving. Now, it never keeps into one spot at a time. It's kind of hunting, so we got to consider that a variable. So we are somewhat close as far as TDC from the tower. Actually, I can probably go a little to the left on the on here, and then I'll go this way. And okay, all right, we'll look about 11 degrees. But then again, this is running at idle, and we're also down a cylinder. So the engine's not running on all 4 cylinders. That is also a variable. So right now, later I'm going to get rid of the transducer, and we're going to do everything just with the crank signal and the ignition #1 trigger. But nonetheless, I want to look at one more thing to show you, to talk about. As we key in on this thing, we're going to call this area, this is our trough, okay? And I'm going to say that TDC, the rest of this video, you'll notice, is kind of be about right here. If you could picture right in here, there, that's where usually it is. I can't get it to a specific degree or a point, but it's going to be hover kind of, if this were 50%, this were 75, this were 25%, we're going to hover between about 40 from all the testing I do. Now, it will have a plus or minus. It won't be exactly every time, but kind of ingrain that into your head as you watch the rest of this. You'll say about 40% of the way across the trough, and that is pretty much a constant. I know that RPM and engine speed has a effect on the length of the trough, but it's the ratio of the trough. 48% across the trough, if our spark is happening there, that's a constant. That could be 1,000 RPM, that could be at 6,000 RPM. So just bear that in mind. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do everything, but I'm going to do it cranking, and I'm going to take a look. I'm going to kill the fuel, and then we're going to take a picture cranking and see where that is. Let's measure that. Okay. Okay. Okay, we got a little, all right, a typical cranking scenario, a little rough. It's got because there's definitely speed changes. Let's look at our tower, and let's look at our spark. Now we seem to be on the downside of the tower, so we may surmise. And let's look at our trough again. We already talked about the trough. Here's our trough. I could say that spark is most likely happening after top dead center. Okay, if here's that spot I was telling you about, that 40% into the trough area, we are definitely happening after top dead center, because we can see the spark on the right side of our predicted I'm going to call this the TDC zone. But nonetheless, just bear that in mind when we're cranking. Where is our TDC though? Where's our top? Our highest pressure would be, okay, we're about right there. Okay, if you look at that as again our trough, that's probably 50% of the way across the trough. Remember I said 40 was kind of ideal, but nonetheless variables again. We're cranking, and the tower will never be perfect. It'll never be hair splitter, dial indicator, TDC. It'll be awful close, but nonetheless, just bear that in mind. One thing I also want to talk about is something called piston dwell. Piston dwell is when a piston moves up to top dead center. When it gets to TDC, it actually stops for a very, very minuscule amount of time, and it stays there as the crank is swinging through a few degrees. And then the piston starts to move down. The combustion process takes place. The piston accelerates about 75% of its distance down, and then it decelerates and it stops at bottom dead center. We also have to consider that a variable, is that the piston actually at TDC, it's not perpetually moving through there. There's a halt point, and then it picks up, accelerates to about the 75% of the way down, and then it decelerates to bottom dead center. Nonetheless, just bear that in mind. So here we go, and let's get a okay, since we saw those two, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into some recordings. I'm going to go into some things that I from files that I recorded in different areas. Basically what I did was I had a scan tool hooked up, had these scan tools, the Genesis hooked up only on one pin. I looked at the degrees, and I kept the throttle as steady as I could, a little off idle, to get the timing to stay there as consistently as I can. I took a scan recording and I took a scope recording, and I kind of coupled them together. I'm going to go to what I call the 40 before snapshot that I took. We're going to see, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, the scan tool said 40. I froze the scope and I froze the scan tool, and let's see what we get here. I'll tell you that before, and we'll see if we're anywhere close to that. So let me find that guy here. Okay, right here. I called that 40/0. We'll take a look at that. Okay, let me get back to about midway through the test so I can kind of get that sweet spot. This is where I'm cruising down the road, and this is where I took I froze the capture. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to do to get real good granularity. I'm going to do a crankshaft rotation, because I want to key in on this. And what I want to do is I'm going to change the scale. Right here, I'm going to go to 360, which you can do on the Pico. Okay, 360, and then I'm going to go to get this out of the way, and then we'll be dealing with 360 degrees. I'm going to mark a crank rotation. I'm going to use this as a reference point, the upward on the skinny guy. You can see the skinny guy on the crank signal. That's what we call the anomaly pulse, or the oddball. So I'm going to get on the oddball, and right there is 360 degrees of we have one rotation here, and we're going to go to our spot, the trough. Man, remember that terminology, that's our trough. We're going to go into our trough, and remember I said 40% of the trough. We'll see what's happening. This is the spark happening, and this is, I'll go 40 into the trough estimate wise. There's about halfway. Then I'll go back this way and I'll see something. And, okay. Oh no, I got the wrong trough. Okay. There's my trough. Oh God, okay. There we go. See, I had a little egg on my face. It happens when you're shooting live. I'm dead nuts at 40. Look at right here. Okay, I can tell you when I took the recording on the scan tool, I had my foot into the pedal so easily, so I wanted to keep the timing at a steady value. I didn't want to have any acceleration, any loads. I was on a flat road, smooth road, no traffic in front of me. Let's go into our trough, and I want to talk about the trough even more. Let's get the filter off, so we want to be square. It's hip to be square. Come on, Huey Lewis. All right, sorry about that. Okay. Anyway, here is our spark, and here is we're about. If I go 40, I'll go 40 right there, 40.04. That's where I took this capture. Now I want to show you one other thing that it may help evaluate things, and I'm going to actually do something pretty crude, but it actually works. I'm going to take a ruler, and I'm going to measure the length of the trough, the entire bottom length of the trough in millimeters, and I'm going to measure the bottom length to where we perceive TDC to be, and look at our percentage, okay? Remember I talked to you rough plus or minus 40 degrees, 38 to 40, but nonetheless, let me measure this. I got a magnifying glass, and I will measure the length of our trough in millimeters is 54 millimeters. The length of our, let me get that, 54 millimeters, and the length of our beginning of our trough is 19 millimeters. I'm going to divide 19 by 54 on the calculator right here. Let's see what we get. Oh, come on. Divided by 54 equals, I got 35. Okay, that's fairly close. We have an idea. Remember I said it hovers in this area, and there are variables. I talked about piston dwell, but that's 35% of the trough. Remember when I told you the trough is 18 crank degrees? Let me sort of prove that and see if I end up with egg on my face. Okay, 1881. Okay, there's 18 crank degrees there. So just bear that in mind. That's a separate 18 degrees. I'm not talking 18 degrees before top to the center. In this case, we're looking at about 40 degrees before top to the center. Nonetheless, it's 18 degrees, and we know that the spark happened right around here. So, look at that trough, and as you look at different vehicles, you want to get a known good trough for your engine. That's the key. If you can kind of split hairs into that area, find that little sweet spot after you test a known good vehicle in different methods, and using could be the scan tool, could be the WPS, could be both. You want corroboration to where that guy is, because if you're dealing with a crankshaft reluctor wheel that's walked or a flywheel that's shifted, it won't be consistent. Something will be out of kilter. You may have a good tower, but yes, this spot in the trough is way over here, or way advanced, or way retarded. Just want to bring that out. Okay, I will go to another situation. I will talk about another capture in my archive, which I took. I took a bunch of them, and I will go to. I will open, and I did this 2 days ago, and I will pick another scenario. I got 28 before top dead center. No, that was my day. Okay, here's a 29er. Okay, this is 29, and I'm just gonna do this and see where we get as far as. We analyze this one, 29 before top dead center. This is where I took this recording. And, okay. I'll go back to right here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to key in on one crank revolution. I want to get the filter off because I want squares. I want square signals. We're not filtered there. Get this guy out of here. I will turn this into a 360. We're at 720 to 360, 60. Okay, and our other guy, we're going to go to the same. We're going to go 1 crankshaft revolution on this side. Come on. Right here. We're on the same spot on the crank signal. That's the anomaly one. Let me make sure I'm good there. Look at my magnifying glass. Good there. And good there. Okay. Remember what I said? I said, okay, 29. This was recorded to be about 29 before top dead center. So let's go to where the spark lit off right here. We can still see a little, that's our trigger from the PCM to the number 1 coil right there. Okay. And then let's look at 29 degrees in the trough. Okay, there's 30. Okay, let me call that 30. And then we're going to look at it. Okay, there's our trough. There's our sweet spot. That looks like a good TDC zone compared to the other ones. This was recorded at about 29 degrees before top descent. Don't forget, the scan tool is processed. That's where the PCM wants the timing. The scope is a validator of where the timing is. Just bear that in mind. So you can see right here, we're in our trough area, and this would be pretty much our TDC. And we would look at that and say that, you know, that's a credible spot. We can trust that. You know, if we were dealing with a car that had a correlation issue or had something where we couldn't trust that, you know, we'd use other ways to prove it worthy or prove it unworthy. So nonetheless, let's look at our trough, and we're going to measure. Again, I'm going to measure with the millimeter ruler. And the length of the trough is, I'm getting 105, 106, 110. I'm getting 116 millimeters all the way across. And on the TDC spot, I'm getting 45, 6, 7, 8. I'm getting 48. 48 divided by 116. I'll do it on the calculator. Clear. 48 divided by 116 equals, okay, 41. That's 41% across. Again, it's close. I said between 40 at the beginning of the video. That seems to be the sweet spot, which it likes to hover about. We can almost say that's really, really close TDC. And remember, there's other ways to do it. You know, if we had a tower, our tower would probably be in this area. It may be a little off, but we know that it would kind of be within 1 or 2 degrees of this area. So nonetheless, let me think of, see if I have another capture in my arc. I'm going to do one more just to see, to prove out that this is a viable method to determine TDC. We still recording. I got 29, I got 35, I got what else do I have? Okay, I'm gonna do the decel. This is decel. This is a true decel, which, as in the beginning of the video, I showed you the scan tool. I showed you that flat PID that was really smooth. That means the PCM pretty much locked the timing 8 degrees before top dead center. So let's take a look at this, and then I'll be ending the video. And we're just gonna see what we got here. Okay, let's go in. Same as before, we're gonna go 1 crank rotation. We're gonna change our thing here to 360. 360. Okay, no, it didn't change. All right. 360. Okay. Okay. We're right here, and we're right here. Let's get rid of that filter so we can have more square captures. Only filter, there's a time to filter and a time not to filter. You don't want to over filter and shoot yourself in the foot. Just be mindful of that. Okay, we're at 360. That's a rotation of the crankshaft. I mean, check with the magnifying glass. Pretty good. I can go a little to the left on the 0 here. And this guy's on. Okay. I'm going to bring on, this is our spark. This is when the PCM fires the plug. Let's kind of get in on that. And let's see where, this is our spark. And let's see about our 40% theory. Okay. Okay. I should have left it at 7.9. Oh my God, 8.5. 8 point, I'm leaving there, going crazy. Okay, that's 8.3 before top dead center. This is on a decel now. Now, I kind of like this, and I thought about it. That's when the crank variation relearn happens. So if you ever want to prove something out, this method, I think the most credible with the scan tool is with a decel. So take a scan tool recording on a decel, take a snapshot of it, and use that as your guideline as you make this comparison with your scope capture to find a really hair splitter TDC. So anyway, we can see that we're 8.3 degrees before top dead center, and that's our top. There's our trough. Let's measure our trough and see where we are as far as if we're close to that 40 range, which we've been on the other measurements. Okay, righty. Our trough is 139 millimeters. Our TDC is 61 millimeters. 61 divided by 130, what did I say? 139. No, what was that? I'm sorry. All right, the trough length is 139. 61 divided by 139. 61 divided by 139. I got 43. So again, we're in that area, we're in that range, that TDC range, and we're never going to get it dead nuts, you know, fight for the perfection, but we know we're fairly close. So we can use this to our diagnostic advantage to prove out if the crank sender, if our crank signal predicted TDC point is where it's supposed to be. Now there's always that variable where the reluctant wheel will walk, and this information will not line up. So anyway, I hope this helps somebody. You can probably elaborate on it. You can probably make it better. It wouldn't surprise me. Just something to consider. Don't sell the ruler technique short. It's simple. It's a lot of it's basically conversion. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and be well.